new report found that foreign student enrollment at U.S. colleges held steady this fall, despite President Trump's immigration crackdown. But it also revealed international students coming to the U.S. for the first time fell by 17%, the sharpest decrease since the COVID-19 pandemic. The survey from the Institute of International Education says the overall dip was less severe than some had predicted. Researchers credit colleges for helping students navigate visa issues through the summer. Marcela Sanchez, Washington.
President Trump pushing a plan for $2,000 tariff dividend checks to Americans, but the projection markets say it's only got a 7% chance of happening. The White House says it's exploring its legal options. Congress would have to approve the measure. More of these stories at SRNews.com.
In God's Word, James chapter 1 and verse 27, we have this word concerning godliness. Pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction, and to keep himself unspotted from the world. God's standard of godliness in James chapter 1 and verse 27.
Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. Do you know Christ as your Savior? Learn of him daily, right here on VCY America.
VCY America is KVCX Gregory and WVIW Bridgeport. Christian Information Radio.
History was made on today's date. Stay tuned for an American Minute with Bill Federer.
Bloody Mary condemned over 300 people to be burned alive. She had been Queen of England for 5 years after her father Henry VIII. Upon her death this day, November 17, 1558, her half-sister Elizabeth became queen and ruled 45 years, during which time Sir Francis Drake destroyed the Spanish Armada, Sir Walter Raleigh discovered Virginia, and Shakespeare advanced theater. Regarding her epitaph, Queen Elizabeth stated, I am no lover of pompous title, but only desire a line or two which shall express my name, my virginity, the years of my reign, and the reformation of religion under it.
This has been an American Minute with Bill Federer. For a free transcript, call American Minute at 1-888-USA-WORD. VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Friends, we thank you for joining us on Crosstalk here on VCY America. And there is so much happening in our country right now. We have many important issues to bring to your attention today. Earlier this month, we were joined by Matt Staver of Liberty Counsel regarding an opportunity before the United States Supreme Court to accept or reject a case that had the potential to overturn the Obergefell decision and the religious freedom of County Clerk Kim Davis. Well, the court has made their decision. We'll discuss that today. Meanwhile, in a very egregious attack on Christianity in a custody decision, a court has denied a mother the right to take her own daughter to her church and demands that the child does not have any association with her church friends. The judge is so hostile in this situation that the judge refuses even to capitalize the word God. Further, the judge has denied the child the right to read her Bible. We'll be talking about that today as well. And there are those who are trying to censor Christmas and to keep you from exercising your religious rights. Joining us today, we welcome back Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. He's a constitutional attorney, 3 landmark cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. He is an author. He is host of the radio broadcast Faith and Freedom and Freedom's Call and the TV broadcast Freedom Alive, all which air through WVCY, VCY America, and our TV station. Matt, thanks for joining us here today on Crosstalk.
Thank you, Jim. It's good to be with you, as always.
So, Matt, let's begin with the Kim Davis case. On November 7th, the court conferred whether or not to take the Kim Davis case. She being a county clerk, she suffered jail time. She was facing a fine for refusing to violate her religious convictions. We said this case had the potential to overturn the Obergefell decision of 2015. So last Monday, Matt, the court sidestepped this case. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, it's very disheartening that the court sidestepped this case. They decided not to take the case. Now, when they do that, they never give you a reason why. And understandably, very few cases are accepted by the Supreme Court. They accept only a small number, about 1% or less. They only take up about 60 or 70 cases a year of about 8,000 to 9,000 that are actually requested. So it's very difficult to get one before the Supreme Court. This one, however, had a very strong potential because a lot of people were watching it. Certain Supreme Court watchers and attorneys and specialists were really keeping their eye on this case. Why? Because it has a very set, compelling of facts. And here you have a woman who simply asked for a very easy accommodation, remove her name from the license. And then she was sued. All she wanted is her name off the license. Within 6 weeks of being sued, she got her first accommodation. The Democrat governor, Governor Beshear, who refused to grant the request originally, then was asked, is this license valid without her name on it? And in fact, what happened is she went to jail for 6 days. She wanted her name removed while she was asking for this accommodation. So she was in jail for 6 days, and while she was there, one of her deputy clerks on his own, he issued a license to the same-sex couples in this case and struck through the name of Kim Davis. Every certificate has her name on it, so manually just struck through it. They were upset. So they went back to the court, asked for her to be held in contempt, and the governor, same governor, Beshear, the Democrat governor, came back and said, no, it's valid. Even though her name was struck through, it's still valid. Well, that made the same-sex couple livid, but that was the first accommodation. That was September, within 6 weeks of being sued. Then the election happened in November, and in December, the first act of the governor, Matt Bevin, the Republican, he issued a very lengthy executive order accommodating Kim and all the clerks to remove their names for religious reasons because of their religious objections. That's the second accommodation. Then, in April of 2016, she got the third accommodation by unanimously passed legislation that had no objections by any member of the state legislature. So she got it in September, December, and the following year in April. Very simple, remove her name, and after her name was removed, she can issue the licenses. She just didn't want her name associated with a relationship called marriage that is not part of God's design. And so she got the accommodation, they got the license, but they wanted her name on it. So the next 10 years was a vendetta against Kim, and now she gets tagged with $360,000 against her personally. These are very compelling facts. Mm-hmm. So the two arguments at the very beginning, we had three questions. The first two questions was the religious free exercise should accommodate her. She got accommodated. We can see that it's easy to accommodate her. The First Amendment free exercise clause should have done that. It should have been easily to do by the court, but the court didn't do it. That was the first two questions. And the third question was, Obergefell was wrongly decided, overturn it. But they did not take this case. Mm-hmm. And so it was disappointing. But I can tell you that we, although the 10 years of litigation with Kim Davis has come to an end, but for the fact that we now have to deal with this fallout with regards to the consequences of this case not being accepted, and that is the alleged, payment to these other individuals that we'll have to work through. Does Kim Davis have any assets? She doesn't really have anything, to be honest, but that's going to have to be worked through and resolved. So for Kim, there's still some ongoing action. But mm-hmm. for the challenge to Obergefell, that will not stop. Right. And I can tell you it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when the Obergefell opinion will be overturned. It will be overturned, and we will not rest until it is. So we're continuing to work to set up cases, to get cases, to talk with legislators. I just spoke to legislators from 35 states last Friday, and I'll continue to work with legislators across the country as well as individuals. We will be back, and this case will ultimately be overturned. Matt,
just to be clear, these two men were not denied a license. They just demanded that her name appear on that license, correct?
That's correct. And by the way, they could have gotten their license immediately from any other clerk. And in fact, as this one David Ermold would travel to work, he would pass by another clerk's office that was giving out licenses. So he could have gotten it right away. but he wanted Kim's name on it. He got his license, but he didn't have her name on it, and he wanted her name on it. And why did he want her name on it? He wanted Kim Davis's name on it because she's the one who came forth and said she has a sincerely held religious belief that marriage is the union of a man and a woman, and she cannot put her name on a license, and so please remove her name. So he was focused on Kim as a vendetta to mock and denigrate her Christian faith.
Yeah. So right now, then, this leaves Kim Davis personally liable for these hurt feelings from the same-sex couple?
Yeah, and that's exactly right, hurt feelings, but Kim Davis is personally liable.
Right.
So, you know, we had 2 juries in 2023 in the same courtroom at the same time with the Ermold and more individuals, and then we had another set of individuals that continued the lawsuit as well. The one jury for the other group came back within 45 minutes and said no damages, and then this jury for Ermold and Moore came back with no basis whatsoever and gave them $50,000 apiece, $100,000 collective, and then the judge tacked on $260,000 in fees.
Right.
But there was no basis for it because there's no lost wages, there's no out-of-pocket money, there's no counseling, there's nothing. And so they came down to hurt feelings. Their feelings were hurt because they wanted Kim Davis's name on it.
Yeah.
They had hurt feelings, and so they wanted Kim to pay for their hurt feelings. That's why this case had so many compelling components to it.
Right.
It was the ideal fact case to overturn a Burgerfell, but they sidestepped it.
Does an official have to shed their constitutional rights when they're elected?
No, absolutely not. In fact, just 2 weeks before, or now about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks ago, the Texas Supreme Court issued a decision 9-0 because Texas judges were also being sued like Kim Davis. And so the Court of Appeals for the federal court asked the Texas Supreme Court to weigh in on this. And so what they did was they unanimously voted 9-0 to amend their Code of Judicial Conduct so that judges in Texas can opt out of performing same-sex ceremonies for religious reasons. And they actually said a Burgerfell does not affect the First Amendment rights of people who are elected. The First Amendment predates a Burgerfell, and a Burgerfell can't change it. And so these judges, who are elected officials, have a constitutional right to free exercise of religion under the First Amendment.
Yeah.
So you don't lose your rights to the Constitution and to the First Amendment simply because you're voted into office. There's nothing in the Constitution that says these protections are only for private individuals and not for public individuals. No, they're for everybody. The real question is not, do we have constitutional rights as an elected or private individual? We do. The question is, in this case, how can you accommodate that? Well, the accommodation is pretty obvious. A Democrat, a Republican, and a unanimous legislature accommodated. Very simple. Remove the name. End of story. Move on. But that didn't happen right away because of the 6-week delay, and consequently, when the name was removed, these individuals turned it into a 10-year vendetta to mock Kim Davis's faith.
Well, friends, as Matt said, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And, Matt, I saw a press release that came out from the Freedom from Religion Foundation that applauded this sidestepping of the court. And they state that Kim Davis defied her oath of office, and then their legal counsel, Chris Line, said this: Liberty Counsel's crusade to overturn marriage equality is about one thing: imposing its narrow religious perspective on everyone else, and the Supreme Court was right to reject that. How do you respond to that?
Well, who wants to impose their perspective on others? It's David Ermold and David Moore. They wanted Kim's name on their license. They got a license, but it didn't have Kim's name on it. They could have gotten a license with any other clerk, but they chose not to. They wanted Kim's name. They wanted her name because they wanted to mock her Christian faith. Now, Kim doesn't lose her constitutional rights when she takes the oath of office. In fact, she takes the oath of office to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. That Constitution includes the First Amendment free exercise clause. So she has a duty to defend the First Amendment free exercise clause. She took an oath of office to do so, and that's what she was doing. It's a very simple accommodation. So who's opposing whose, ideology? It's they want to impose their ideology on someone who has a sincerely held religious belief. That's why the Texas Supreme Court came back, because of the Kim Davis case, because they saw what happens And they protected all of the judges in Texas and said, no, these Texas judges have a constitutional right to opt out. That doesn't mean these people can't get their license, but you just can't force a particular individual against their will. In fact, in Kentucky, for an example, you could opt out of issuing a hunting or fishing license. That's already in the statute if you have a conscientious objection to hunting or fishing. So you don't have to, as a clerk, issue a hunting and fishing license. You can say, I've got a conscientious objection. Somebody else can do it, and you're protected. Well, what more? You've got a conscientious objection to define God's created order of male and female. You know, when 5 lawyers, and that's the Chief Judge's statement, 5 lawyers impose their own will, not a legal judgment, yeah, you have a constitutional right, and that's what Kim Davis sought. That's what she ultimately got, but they didn't get her name, so they're the ones who were trying to impose their ideology.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Friends, Matt Staver with us today from Liberty Counsel, and indeed, 1 week ago, the U.S. Supreme Court sidestepped this case, and as a matter of fact, the Obergefell decision continues to be upheld. But as Matt has stated here, not a matter of if, it's a matter of when that will be overturned. We're going to take a quick break, and friends, when we come back, we've got some more cases we want to talk about that are coming up before the U.S. Supreme Court, and then also a case that was just heard by the Supreme Court in the state of Maine. Some unbelievable things going on there in violation of religious liberty. And we'll tell you more about that, as well as other activities going on here with Liberty Counsel. Back in a minute. You're listening to Crosstalk on the VCY America Network.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, popular creation speaker with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, I've heard that men have one less rib than women due to the creation of Eve from Adam's rib. Is this correct?
No, it's not, Chris. This is an urban legend that's patently untrue. Men and women have the same number of ribs. The number of ribs is controlled by genetics, and this supplies the same number of ribs, even if one is taken out. The same sort of thing happens if one loses a hand in an accident. If he later has children, that child will have hands. Even though this legend has grown up in some circles, the Bible never even gives a hint that this might be true. The Bible is not a legend. It's an accurate record. We best not impose our own legendary biases on the Back to Genesis truth.
To discover more facts that support your faith, visit us on the web at www.icr.org. That's www.icr.org.
You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. Religious liberty is under attack. That's our topic today with constitutional attorney Matt Staver from Liberty Counsel. Matt, when you were on with us earlier this month, you said it was not 1 but 2 cases you had before the U.S. Supreme Court in their conference. One was this case dealing with Kim Davis, but you had a second case as well from the state of New York. What transpired with this? This is in regard to religious liberty and the vaccination.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the Supreme Court actually today just relisted it for its 6th time to conference the case. So they meet on Friday to conference these cases, and so this coming Friday will be the 6th time that they've conferenced on this case. So they're very interested in it, and we'll see exactly, what they're going to do with it. But we could hear a week from today whether they take this case or not. Obviously, they have a strong interest, but it's a case where New York said to the employers, you can't accommodate any individual's religious request, even remote workers. And if you do, to the employers, you'll be fined daily and lose your business license. One of the clients we represent is someone who owned a nursing facility, an assisted living facility, for decades. All of his employees were religious Christians, and they wanted the accommodation. If he had given that, he had to shut down. So he's not in business anymore. He's gone because he was not going to force his people to violate their Christian beliefs. And so it's a tragedy what's happened. So this is the case that's pending before the Supreme Court. A week from today, we'll find out what they decided this coming Friday.
Is this common or not common to go to 6 different conferences?
It's not common. It's more common to have a case conferenced twice before it's taken up. We've had cases that just come up for the first conference and they're taken. But the typical procedure now is they conference it twice, and on the second time they take it up or they deny it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not typical to have a case conference 6 times. So they're really looking at this case for some reason. We don't know exactly what it is that is holding up their final decision, but keep praying for it. We represent hundreds of healthcare workers in the state of New York.
Okay, again, friends, be praying for that case. And Matt, I know that there's a case coming up before the U.S. Supreme Court in January dealing with the matter of fairness in women's sports. You have filed briefs in this case. It's a significant, important case coming before the court on January 13th.
Yeah, it's a big case that'll be argued, and it'll be decided by the end of June of 2026. Yeah, we filed an amicus brief in this particular case because, this is Title IX. Title IX is a federal law, and there's also the equal protection provision of the Constitution. So there's equal protection of the Constitution, and then there's also Title IX. Title IX actually is designed to protect women, and Equal Protection Clause is not designed to do anything to the contrary to that. It's to provide equal protection. But it's just completely the opposite when you take a man and say that this man can now say to someone, I identify as a female, and therefore invade their sports, take their trophies, beat them up, cause injuries, which they've done, invade their private spaces. That is a total reversal of the Equal Protection Clause and a total reversal of Title IX. So these cases are going to be argued in early January, and a decision will be next year. It'll be a very significant outcome because half of the states right now have actually passed laws banning these kinds of situations where boys are going into girls' sports. It doesn't make any sense, and girls have been injured. For example, there's some girls that have had long-lasting concussions playing volleyball because the male on the other side, pretending to be a female, has spiked the ball so hard it's caused concussions and serious injury.
Yeah, and I know that situation, I believe it's the state of Michigan right now in the state finals dealing with volleyball. You have a male identifying as a female. Their team is advancing through this in the final 8 right now. So it's a big issue. And, friends, the court scheduled to take this up on January 13th. And, Matt, I just want to make note of this as well. Last week I saw a Washington Times running a story of a Colorado sheriff. He's asking the Supreme Court to hear his dispute over a male prisoner identifying as a transgender, demanding that this prisoner wants to be treated like a woman, housed with women. But it's amazing to see where the sexual deviancy is taking us.
Well, it's sexual deviancy, sexual anarchy. It's actually the abolition of gender. And in fact, if you go to Obergefell, the so-called same-sex marriage decision, it's at the root of a lot of this because in a gender-based relationship like marriage that everyone knows, it's very obvious, marriage between a man and a woman, you say that gender doesn't matter. You can have 2 men, you can have 2 women. Well, if it doesn't matter in an objective gender-based relationship, then the policy consequence of that, it doesn't matter in sports. It doesn't matter in private spaces. It doesn't matter in whether you want to have one of 100-plus pronouns or whatever you want to identify. It just doesn't matter. And so what the ultimate objective of this LGBTQ agenda has always been, and that is the abolition of gender. As ridiculous as it sounds, that's exactly what is the objective. The objective actually is very absurd when you have, men wanting to be women, and they then get put into the women's prison, and then they sexually harass, and they're right there in the presence of these women, and you see this in the sports. It just makes no sense. It's absolutely an attack on God's created order, and that's what it's designed to do.
Mm-hmm. Friends, you're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. Matt Staver is with us today, and if your blood pressure hasn't risen yet, it's about to, because, Matt, you've got a critical case heard just last week by the Maine Supreme Court regarding a mom who's been barred by taking her 12-year-old girl to church, does not allow the girl to associate with her friends from church, cannot attend even a wedding or a funeral at the church. There's so much more to this, but it's absolutely outrageous. It's a custody case. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, this is the Bickford versus Bradeen case, and about 12-plus years ago, nearly 13-plus years ago, Emily Bickford and Matthew Bradeen, they had a relationship, and they she got pregnant. She did not get married. She gave birth to Emily, Ava. Emily gave birth to Ava. Ava is now 12. She's going to be 13 in January. And so in May of 2021, Emily begins attending Calvary Chapel in Portland, Maine. And Ava wants to get baptized. So she tells her dad, who Emily, the mother, has primary custody, and Matthew, the dad, has visitation. And he says, "Oh, I'm running to the court. I'm going to stop you from doing that." He doesn't want her to get baptized. So he gets the so-called expert from California, a Marxist, who essentially says, well, this church follows the, quote, Moses model, as though Moses is a bad character, that you have a pastor who preaches verse by verse, chapter by chapter. They believe in heaven, hell, salvation, the second coming. They believe in angels and demons. Oh, this is terrible for kids. It's going to psychologically harm them. Well, this judge, who was formerly the president of the ACLU, she issues an order. And she allows this Matthew, who obviously hates God in the way he's done things, to have total control. The order acknowledges that Emily, the mom, is a fit parent. There's no abuse or neglect. There's no evidence, in fact, that the Bible has caused her any harm. But nevertheless, she gives him total control. No Calvary Chapel, no association with anybody at Calvary Chapel, no reading their literature, no videos. Well, anything that's associated with Calvary Chapel, which includes the Bible, she can't have any access to.
My.
So she's been attending Calvary Chapel since about 7 all the way up to 12 years old. So she's been attending for about 3.5, 4 years. So all of a sudden in December of 2024, she has to totally separate from Calvary Chapel. She can't go back. She can't talk to her friends, can't associate with them, can't go to Christmas parties. So she didn't go to a Christmas party last year. No Easter this year. No Christmas this year because the order is still in effect. Nothing. She can't be around anything that's religious, Christian particular is what I mean. She can't read the Bible. She can't go to any church. So the mom has actually given 4 alternative churches. How about this church? How about this church? And 4 churches. He's denied every one of them. And then he says, as of March 29, 2025, I'm not going to consider any more churches. I'm done with it. No more. They're all bad. If you can show me a reason why church is beneficial for her, I'll consider it, but I'm done. So since December of 2024, she's had no ability to take her daughter to church, no ability to read the Bible with her, no ability to have a Bible study. She can't visit any of her Christian friends that she's developed over 3.5, 4 years. She can't go to a Christmas party, can't go to an Easter celebration, nothing. This is so outrageous. And so I argued that at the Maine Supreme Court just this past Thursday afternoon. It's called the Bickford versus Bradeen case, and we represent Emily Bickford, just an incredible Christian woman, and then her daughter Ava, who now is 12, turning 13 in January. And I had a chance to spend time with some of the people at the church and also the pastor, who is a delightful Christian pastor. But this is the most outrageous case that I've ever seen in all of our history. We don't get involved very often in custody cases because that sort of takes us outside of our normal practice. Mm-hmm. But we do in rare cases where you have a significant religious freedom component, and this literally is off the chart.
It is off the chart, Matt. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, I'm sure you've looked at the Constitution for the state of Maine. Does this not provide for the free exercise of religion as well?
It does. It's a contemporary interpretation with the First Amendment free exercise of religion. But the courts have been pretty clear that you can't just simply give a total veto right to one parent to have no religion for the child. And basically how it works is, divorce and custody, those are difficult issues. But when the child is with mom, she can take her to her church. When the child's with dad, he can take her to whatever church or no church. But you can't give somebody who is an atheist, a hater of God, a hater of church, as a total veto, total discretion. In other words, from a fit parent, she can't make any decisions about reading the Bible with her. She couldn't take her to, for example, our live nativity scene that we're going to have in Washington, D.C. She couldn't have her participate in the National Day of Prayer. Nothing. And the order also, by the way, every time the word God is mentioned, you mentioned that earlier, she lowercases it. You know what that means. Uppercase means you're talking about a particular supreme being. Lowercase means it's polytheism. Mm-hmm. She's mocking this woman's faith in the order. And then she actually suggests, Calvary Chapel, because they believe in heaven, hell, they believe in salvation, they believe in ultimate truth, literally. They believe in good versus evil. They believe in the Bible, and they're going to preach the Bible verse by verse, chapter by chapter. She says that's like a cult. That's like a cult. And when you have a pastor who believes in the Bible and you preach it verse by verse, she calls that the Moses model. The Moses model. Like, Moses was a bad character. I mean, my goodness. This is outrageous. I've never seen anything that even comes to near this kind of hostility toward religion.
How many justices are on the Maine Supreme Court?
There are 6 justices on the Maine Supreme Court, and I think the majority of justices, there's probably one justice that just doesn't seem to want to get to the ultimate issue. But I think 5 of the justices, they actually said, look, this thing, when the other side got up to argue the case, that this case has hostility written all over it.
Yeah.
And I think they see that because it's obviously very clear.
We're going to pick this up after the break. Friends, outrageous. Cannot take your daughter to church, cannot read the Bible, cannot associate with anybody from the church, cannot go there for Christmas or Easter, cannot go there to attend a wedding, cannot go there to attend a funeral. We'll be back in a minute. You're listening to Crosstalk.
No matter what issues you experience in life, you will find help in the book of Psalms. The Psalms bring comfort to a hurting heart.
The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want.
As read by Brad Canterbury, VCY America is offering an audio CD, a complete reading of the book of Psalms, bringing hope in times of discouragement.
Why art thou cast down, O my soul? And why art thou disquieted within me? Hope in God.
The Psalms provide direction for daily living.
Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path.
Good for yourself and to share with others. This 5-CD set is available for a donation of $20 by calling 1-800-729-9829. 1-800-729-9829.
Friends, you're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. Matt Staver with us from Liberty Counsel. And friends, you need to be praying for this organization and getting behind this organization that are fighting for religious liberty and the various tasks that they're engaging in the cases. I mean, a custody battle where the dad wants nothing to their child to have no impact from religion, specifically from this church, a Calvary Chapel church. And the mom wanting to take her daughter. She's been attending there for years. She's made friends at this church and has been attending there for 5 years or so. And all of a sudden it's saying, no, you can't have any more access to the church, cannot read the Bible or religious literature or be exposed to any religious philosophy. Friends, in my book, this is open hostility against Christianity. And Matt, you took this before the Supreme Court of the state of Maine. Do we have any idea when this court would release their decision?
No, and we don't. And so here we're approaching the Thanksgiving season, just a little over a week away, and then right after that we're into Christmas. So we all want to be able to celebrate Christmas. Maybe go to a church that has a great Christmas presentation. Emily can't take her daughter Ava there. That would be contempt of the court order. I mean, that's outrageous. And she wasn't able to do that a year ago in December. She wasn't able to do anything regarding Easter. She had to just, as though Easter didn't exist. And this is under court order. So time is of the essence. There's no time frame that they are required to issue an order. But pray for this case. Pray for Emily Bickford, Emily and Ava, that the court issues a decision quickly and that they issue it the right way, that they overturn this because it is a clear violation of the First Amendment and also the rights of parents. Parents have a constitutional right to raise their children, including in religious instruction, and you can't just simply say no to religion.
Friends, again, that would be, the mom is Emily Bickford. That's Bickford. Be praying for Emily Bickford. Her daughter Ava is going to be turning 13 this coming January. And friends, just think about those of you listening right now with a 12 or 13-year-old at home, and any child, friends, and being told, man, I'm sure if she defied this order, that the judge would readily remove this child from her home.
Yeah, the judge would try to transfer primary custody and remove the child. So that's a real problem here. You know, these judges have a lot of power, and frankly, the judge needs to be recused in this case whenever it goes back down because of the open hostility that is on the face of the order. I've never seen a judge over and over and over again lowercasing the word God.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what she did, using the idea of Moses model, referring to an evangelical mainline church as cultic because you believe in things that all basic Christian churches would believe in, the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
You believe in heaven, hell, believe in salvation, believe in angels, believe in demons, believe in the second coming, believe in ultimate truth, believe in good and evil. That's pretty common across, evangelical churches. Churches of all stripes, that's basically...
And that's why, Matt, there's huge implications for any church out there.
That's right, because if this is what happens here, and you say, well, by virtue of exposing them to the Old Testament or talking about spiritual warfare, that's going to be psychologically damaging. Well, the implications of that don't just apply to Calvary Chapel. That's why there's a provision that actually not only specifically applies to Calvary, but also applies, there's another paragraph that applies to any other church or religious organization. So it doesn't even have to be a church. It could be the Salvation Army. If you wanted to go ring a bell, for Salvation Army during Christmas and pray for somebody, well, she couldn't do that either. If she wanted to be around, and it not only includes the Bible, it actually specifically mentions the Bible, Jim. It mentions that it mentions the Bible. It mentions the Bible or religious philosophy. Can't be exposed to the Bible or religious philosophy, whatever that is. So no religion, period.
Friends, be praying for this case and for the Maine Supreme Court as they render their decision on it. Matt, we've got another issue to talk about today, too. You have re-energized the Friend or Foe Christmas campaign. What is this about?
Yeah, the Friend or Foe Christmas campaign is something that we launched almost 3 decades ago, and we launched it to educate and, if necessary, to litigate to make sure that Christmas is not censored, both in the public as well as in the private sector. So we provide education about what is permissible, and now, of course, that the lemon test has been overturned since 2022, we have a lot more freedom to be able to celebrate Christmas. We don't need to secularize it with Santa Claus or the reindeer in order to make it constitutional. So that is clear from, the current change of the Supreme Court overruling the lemon test of 1971. So it's designed to educate, but it's also designed to litigate as well. I remember just a few years ago in Wauwatosa, where we've had issues before. Wauwatosa city manager sent out a note, you can't sell to all the employees, you can't celebrate traditional Christmas, so no traditional Christmas symbols. No red and green, because that's Christmas, and I can't do that. But let's celebrate things that are more inclusive, like the Northern Lights, and maybe colors such as purple, green, or something else. Well, you know what? The Northern Lights also, I've seen it with red and green, but she left that out. We sent a demand letter saying that's unconstitutional. You can't tell the employees to do that. Unfortunately, they backpedaled, and they said, okay, we're back to where we are. We can still celebrate Christmas however you want to do it. But that's the kind of absurd things that are out there, and we continually want to push back and make sure that Christmas is not censored.
Matt, if our listeners encounter situations like this, can they reach out to you?
Absolutely. Reach out to us. We also have, in addition to these issues, like, for example, as you're coming to school and they say no Christmas carols, no red and green, no Christmas cards, so forth, let us know in advance. Or no nativity scenes. We've dealt with a lot of these things all over the country. Just reach out to us. You can go to lc.org, or you can call us at 407-875-1776. And then we also have what we call our naughty and nice list. That's for retail shopping. And that shows it's only focused on Christmas. Retailers that censor Christmas and retailers that acknowledge Christmas. And that has had a huge impact because for a while you couldn't find a Christmas tree. They were called holiday trees. They censored the word Christmas everywhere. And since we did the naughty and nice list where you are aware and you can tell the retailers, hey, we're going to not shop there, we're going to go here instead, they have responded. There's a few hard nuts that have never cracked, and you'll see them on the naughty list. Those ones that are on the naughty list, they've been naughty from the very beginning. They just won't change.
Friends, you can find it at lc.org. That stands for Liberty Counsel, lc.org, or you may call 407-875-1776. I'd like to open our phone lines on Crosstalk today to take your questions, your reactions to these issues being talked about today on the program, whether it be that of the Kim Davis case and the Obergefell that is upheld yet at this point, whether it be that of the situation here in the state of Maine with Emily Bickford, a very outrageous case taking place there. Our phone number to Crosstalk is 800-733-9829. 800-733-9829. Matt, I'm looking at the copy of the Daily Signal that came out on November 13th, and they reference Justice Neil Gorsuch, who was on Fox and Friends, and he said on that program that the greatest danger facing the country was itself. He said Americans couldn't preserve their history unless they know it. He indicated, he said, quote, Thomas Jefferson said, an ignorant people will never remain free for as long as he is right, for we need to know our history in order to preserve it, Gorsuch said. He said, to that point, ignorance and knowing our history, it seemed like a lot of my generation and the younger generation, those stories aren't taught in schools. Do you think that has hurt us as a society, that we eliminated those stories out of our history books? This is one thing my colleagues and I really agree on, is the importance of bringing civic education to our children. Matt, he's calling the greatest danger facing the country, itself.
Yeah, I agree with him. I agree. If you go to our educational system, I mean, if you go to John Dewey and those others that wanted to eliminate God because they were upset about the Judeo-Christian ethics and teachings in the Bible that was in our public schools, and they wanted to eliminate all of that, and so they began to change the public education system. And so what we now have is a system that has literally rewritten our history. And if we don't know our history, then we won't know the distinctives of it. So, when you talk about the First Amendment and somebody says, well, you hurt my feelings, well, you know what? The First Amendment doesn't operate just because your feelings are hurt. In fact, it operates when your feelings are hurt. Mm-hmm. If, in fact, we had to just go based on feelings, then if you have hurt feelings, well, then your feelings can trump my speech, or my feelings can trump your speech. That's not how it works. The First Amendment says, no, we have a right to freedom of speech. We have a right to freedom of conscience. We have a right to free exercise of religion. And if people don't know that, then you end up with the kind of jury below that says, oh, well, they got hurt feelings. Yeah, well, let's give them some money because Kim Davis is the alleged cause of their hurt feelings. If you don't know your history, you will ultimately, that ignorance will ultimately overcome you.
Indeed. Well, our lines are packed. Let's go to them. Dave is calling from Phoenix, Arizona. Dave, you're on the air.
Yes, Jim. I just wanted to call that there are a lot of Christian groups that don't observe Christmas and Easter. And the reason they don't is because they've searched the scriptures and they do not find the birth date of our Savior.
Yeah.
We know that his death was on Passover, not on Easter. Mm-hmm. Easter is only in the King James Version. So there are that don't keep these days.
Well, and that very well is true, Dave, that there are those who don't. But you know what? We celebrate the birth of Christ. We don't know the day of his birth. We celebrate a Savior that has come. And that's what Christmas is. It's celebrating the birth of the Savior who came. And, Matt, really, that's what this is about.
That's what it's about, yeah. It's like celebrating the birth of the Savior. There's no magic to a particular day. Nobody says that he was born on December 25. But you pick a day and you want to celebrate it, and it is a universal holiday that is celebrated around the world. And people that don't normally even think about it, they start thinking about it. And it's a great time, instead of us saying, well, we don't want to celebrate it because we don't know what day it is. Well, you know, be my guest. Go ahead and do that. That's fine. That's your decision. But don't impose that on everybody else, because people can celebrate that, and others that don't normally even come in contact with Christ's birth will come in contact with Christ's birth, and it's a great opportunity for us to share the good news of Christ's birth.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. You know, there are those schools that will get people to celebrate a whole month of Pride. They'll have National Coming Out Day and LGBT History Month, but don't dare mention Christmas, Matt.
Yeah, and so when you set up a situation like that, what kind of message are you telling our people? Well, you can celebrate all these radical things that are anti-God, anti-religious, but by the way, just don't celebrate anything that's Christian, because if you do, you're going to be punished. It's out of bounds. And you know what? Those kids that grow up like that, you know, they become our leaders. And guess what they do? They impose the same kind of policies, and it gets worse and worse and worse, generation after generation.
Up against a break, our number, we've got some open lines here again, 800-733-9829. No, the word Christmas is not in the Bible, but when the fullness of time was come, God sent forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law. It's the incarnation, the birth of Jesus Christ. That's what is celebrated. Back in a minute, you're listening to Crosstalk.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brennan House. Our website is worldviewtube.com. Satan, as we know, tried to stop Jesus from becoming our sacrificial lamb. We see that in the scripture several times. And now Satan's trying to stop him from becoming our victorious king. Yes, the king is coming, and he'll rule for 1,000 years on earth during that millennial kingdom before the new heaven and the new earth is established. And there's a spiritual battle going, and it involves wiping out every last Jew on the planet. And isn't it interesting, as a Christian Zionist that believes in God's plan historically and biblically for the Jews, that Christian Zionists and dispensationalists who interpret the Bible correctly and with the same hermeneutical tools over and over are some of the most attacked people today, even on secular podcasts. Is it coincidental that Islam is rising while Christian persecution is rising, as well as the attack of Christians who defend the Jews? It's part of Satan's plan.
Matt Staver with us today from Liberty Counsel, their website, lc.org, lc.org. Critical cases before the courts, and friends, indeed, religious liberty is under attack. They're there to defend religious liberty. Their number 407-875-1776. Ann is our next caller today. Hi, Ann, you're on the air.
Good afternoon. I am just thrilled to be able to share my personal story. Back in 1987, I was involved in a very precarious custody battle, and my constitutional right to share my religious beliefs was completely removed from me. And for 2 years during this custody battle, I was not allowed to mention anything that had anything to do with my faith and my religious convictions. And what essentially amounted to, a gag order by the court, and it was documented and filed with the court in Bernalillo County, New Mexico at the time. And I just decided, you know what? I may not be able to share my faith with my children. I may not be able to take them to church for this amount of time, but you know what? They cannot stop me from sharing the love of Jesus Christ in front of my children. And so I just set that model example to my children. And you know what? To today they're grown. They are believers in Jesus. And basically what it amounted to was a battle between a cult and the truth is what it boiled down to. Yeah. And, of course, I am surrounded by a lot of folks who are of that religious persuasion. At the time, it was really difficult to go through, but I made choices that kind of got me into that mess, and I had to bear the consequences of those choices. But anyway, I did finally get custody of my children, and I was able to share my faith and take them back to my church. And so there is hope. But this was 40 years ago almost now.
Thank you,
so
Ann.
It is real.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ann.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And, you know, I think that's the same thing for Emily and Ava. Just continue to pray that, you know, what they want the locusts to eat, that God will restore 100-fold. And Ava's a wonderful young woman, girl, and so is Emily, a great Christian mom. So continue to pray for them. Thank you for sharing your story.
We've got Tommy calling from Minnesota. Tommy, you're on the air.
Hi, yeah, thank you for taking my call. I just had a thought. This lady that can't take her daughter to church, she can't be involved in any religious activity or any religion. Well, atheism is a religion. So so the father's saying there's one exception. You can be an atheist, and you can be all involved in all the atheist organizations. And the other thought I had was, what if the daughter said, I don't care what you say, Your Honor, I'm going to go to church, I'm going to go to Sunday school, I'm going to join these Christian organizations. I'm not going to tell my mother. I'll just do it on my own.
Yeah. Well, you make good points all on both of those issues. Certainly, I mean, this is definitely imposing the religion of atheism. And the Supreme Court's already indicated in a case that atheism, humanism is a religion.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you for the call. Joseph is calling from New York. Joseph, you're on the air.
How you doing? Just going crazy over what I'm hearing. It's horrible. I believe this all started, or from what I hear, I know I see it in Ireland. In Ireland, of all places, Protestant and Catholics, and you see these people praying in the streets, and that's okay, you know, freedom of religion. And now we have it in the Bronx, people praying in the streets, and this is New York. And, like, I see people fighting with them and arguing with them, saying this is America.
You're referring to the Islamic call to prayer?
Yeah, I think that's where it's stemming from. I believe I could be 100% wrong, but I believe that this is where it's all coming from. They want to change it, and they're going through the LGBT community, and that's okay.
Yeah, thank you, Joseph. I got your point there on it. Matt, and we've had people like Usama Dakdak on that know this goes beyond a religious system, whether it be that of Sharia and Islamic law, etc. Rather, this is something that is seeking to take over, you know, our constitutional republic here as well.
Yeah, that's a whole different situation because if you really look at it, you know, the ultimate goal is to overthrow America, overthrow our Constitution, and impose a Sharia law regime. That's typically, I mean, that's totally antithetical to our Constitution and our constitutional rights.
Right.
That's in a whole different category.
Thank you for the call here, Joseph. Not going to be able to get any further calls in here today, but Matt, I know these are critical times that we're in, and you know, I know there's discouragement from not taking the Obergefell case here by the Supreme Court, or they had the potential, the Kim Davis case, I should say. But you're not packing your bags and going home, are you?
No, we're definitely not packing our bags and going home. You know, we worked and worked and worked to overturn Roe versus Wade. People said it never happened. We worked and worked and worked to overturn Lemon versus Kurtzman. People said it would never happen. Both occurred in 2022. We will not give up. We will not stop. We will be focused even more so to overturn Obergefell. Again, it's not a matter of if it'll be overturned. It's just a matter of when. It will happen, and we'll continue to move forward because it has no basis in the Constitution, and it has caused significant damage, and that will be overturned. It won't be Kim Davis in the case, but it'll be because of Kim Davis's resolve. Kim Davis's example and her courage will set the foundation for the next phase to overturn Obergefell.
And Matt, finally then on this Maine Supreme Court issue, if the court does not rule in favor of Emily Bickford, does it end there, or can she appeal this to the U.S. Supreme Court?
No, because of the case that it has such a significant First Amendment component, I can't imagine the Supreme Court sidestepping this one. We'll take it to the U.S. Supreme Court. So we pray that we get it done earlier, but we've got the backup at the U.S. Supreme Court if this court doesn't do the right thing.
Okay. Matt Staver with us today from Liberty Counsel. And again, Matt, if people have religious liberty issues that are going on, they can contact you at Liberty Counsel?
Yeah, they can go to Liberty Counsel's website, lc.org, or they can call us at 407-875-1776. That's 407-875-1776, or just go to the website, lc.org.
And friends, be praying for Matt and his team at Liberty Counsel as they take so many of these cases. Pray for their safety, for their protection, for good health. Pray that God grant them wisdom, even assembling these cases together. There's so much time, effort, and work that go into them. And Matt, thank you for joining us here today on the broadcast.
Thank you. My pleasure, as always.
Matt Staver from Liberty Counsel. Again, friends, check out their site, lc.org, or you may reach out to them by phone, 407-875-1776. God bless you, friends. Thanks for joining us on Crosstalk.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.